In 20 years, a 5,000-year economy based on horses was upended. The economy just changed dramatically in a 20-year period. That's what I think is about to happen with AI. Back in 1986, 87, I was making $60,000 a year.
That's your entire salary, but you were making that before taxes.
Before taxes.
Yeah, so you were making less than just covering the cost of housing.
So imagine a young man in his 30s. I have a mortgage, I have 2 cars, I have credit cards up the yin-yang, and here's a 53-story building, one of the most beautiful buildings, even today, one of the most beautiful buildings in Atlanta, and I would get to own it. I can cut payroll and cut this salary here and do this, and that's all great, you can do all that, but you're missing the point. And the point is that our business is to provide a family a home. I can't emphasize this enough. And it is our responsibility, that family can live in a safe and clean environment for their children. And if you can't believe in your end product, if you don't want to be good at it, please don't be in this business. It hurts us.
One of the jobs that it's kind of like safe from, being eliminated by AI could be a trade-related job. Maintenance technician, HVAC technician, plumber, electrician. Not only that, but they said they're Norman, welcome to the show. It's so great to have you.
I'm excited to be here, Adrian.
I wanted to start with the origins, right? Back when you grew up, what did you want to become?
I grew up in a public housing project in East New York in Brooklyn, and growing up I wanted to be a paleontologist, an archaeologist, a doctor, all these different kind of things. But really, I looking back, there was a passion for multifamily even then, because I saw how our apartments were being run by the housing authority, and when they were run well, how my childhood blossomed, and when they were run poorly, I lost my childhood. And so I think deep down, I sensed that I would be drawn to that. But on the surface, I told everyone I wanted to be a paleontologist or an archaeologist and dig up old bones.
As you grew up and as your life evolved, right, what were the things that pushed you towards, multifamily and real estate? Because I know you're also a lawyer too.
Yes, well, I am a lawyer, and I think they combined really to make me the businessman I am today. My father always told me, he counseled me to become a lawyer, because he said, as a lawyer, you can do anything you want but practice medicine. So you could be a politician, you can be a lawyer, you can be any kind of lawyer, you can be a businessman, you can go to Wall Street, it can act like an MBA. So it can do all those things, but you can't practice medicine. But it gave you that broad boulevard of a roadway to map out your future career. And that's why I chose being a lawyer. This is a true story. It's hard to believe, but it was a weekend in Manhattan. I was going to law school. I was in my second year, beginning my second year, and my gym was closed. And so another branch of my gym was open in Harlem. So I took the train up to Harlem, and I worked out, and then I had to walk down to Greenwich. I could come down to Greenwich Village. It's a beautiful day. I decided to walk. It's like 5 miles. So I decided to walk. And as I was walking, I saw a for sale sign on a building on 104th and Broadway. I remember it, 222, 224 West 104th Street. And I called the number, and I found out that the building was for sale. This is really shocking in 2025 to think of this, but a Manhattan building was going for $60,000, and the seller was willing to give it to me for $10,000 cash, and he would take back a purchase money mortgage he would finance the other 50 for me. It had 8 apartment units, 2 lofts, and a storefront. And I borrowed the money from my father, and I bought the building. And that's how I got the bug.
That was your first deal?
My first deal was 1979.
1979. That was a long time ago.
It was. And just to put an end to that story, I cleaned out the building myself. I got out the garbage, killed the rats. I found out that the building was so old, half of it still had DC current instead of alternating current. So that was the old Westinghouse model, not the Edison model. So it was obviously from the 1880s part of the building. and I had to fix that, and I did it all by hand. And I was just about to start to lease it up when I got a call to buy it, and I sold it for $125,000. And because of the purchase money mortgage, I made about a 6X on my $10,000. So I was able to pay my dad back, gave him some interest. It was 3 months it took. And then I used the rest of the money to finance law school for the next 2 years. So it was like it was serendipity. And so I got the bug. The big mistake I made was, why didn't I do a second building and a third building and a fourth building then? It was a great upcycle. I would have made a fortune. It was one of my first mistakes, was not continuing on my success. I got kind of like, it's like being in Las Vegas and you get one win on the blackjack table, just take the money and you run. And that's what I did, but I shouldn't have done that. I should have thought about it more, realized what was going on, which I did know, and I should have doubled down, but I didn't do it. But that's how I first got the bug.
Was it not a good thing, though, that you took that money and you pay off your debts and you invested in your education?
I did. And I was able to also live, and I didn't have to work during law school, so that was also a plus for me as well.
So walk me through what happened after law school.
So after law school, my first job was, and I wanted to go and learn. And while I was very fortunate in my first deal, I didn't want to make mistakes with money I didn't have, and so I wanted to learn. So I got a job as Special Assistant Corporation Counsel for the City of New York, assigned to the Department of Housing, Preservation, and Development. That's a long title. And I tell you, when I used to have to say it in court to the stenographer, it took like 2 minutes. A Special Assistant Corporation Counsel of the City of New York assigned to HPD. My job was to provide litigation counsel to the Department of Housing, Preservation, and Development. And I was assigned to in-rem housing. In-rem housing is a fancy term for tax foreclosed properties. And the City of New York was foreclosing on properties left and right. We were coming out of that New York is burning period. Mayor Beam had cut 5,000 police officers. Crime was rampant. There was a huge blackout for days. Looting ensued, and the city reached its low point. This is like 1977. And so many, many buildings went into tax arrears with rent control as well. They couldn't raise the rents to meet the expenses. And so 50,000 buildings were foreclosed on in a very short period of time. 50,000 buildings in New York City. And so I was in charge of most of them. I was assigned principally to Brooklyn, which of course was the biggest borough, but I handled all the boroughs when needed. And so I would go in and handle all the legal actions. I'd have to condemn buildings, close them down. That would mean moving tenants from one building to another. It was the Wild West. There was no statutes that confirmed or allowed that New York could do that. Was New York exempt from rent control laws or not? And so there was just a lot of litigation dealing with those buildings. And of course, I ran it head on into something that confirmed something I remembered from childhood, that at the end of the day, you could be litigating about buildings and closing a building and moving people and is it rent controlled? Is it not rent controlled? Is it decontrolled? I know these are foreign concepts for us in the South, but they're still today the major issues in New York. And at the end of the day, throw those aside. We're dealing with human beings, families that are living in apartments where the landlord had abandoned them maybe 2 years before. The city had foreclosed. The city did not rush in there and start fixing things. It was sort of in a purgatory, operations purgatory for months more. And then you walk into those buildings and people are crying for leadership, crying for someone to look after them. And so, yeah, you can write all these legal briefs you want and you can argue all these things. And that's what really cemented to me at the end of the day. Our business is providing a family a home, and we damn well better be good at it.
What was the most memorable story, a story that follows you to today from that period of your career?
Well, I got a lot of thanks from tenants. Sometimes I would write up court orders ordering the city to make repairs and then go back to the city and say, we're going to have to find the money because the court ordered it, just because I knew a family needed to have heat and hot water. And the thanks that I got, the mothers would come up to me presenting me with bread that they baked or some a Spanish dish that was foreign to me, and but it was dear to their hearts, and that really just warmed me a lot. On the funny side, I used to, again, technology has moved on, but people would come in with Polaroid pictures of their homes, and you'd see pictures of cockroaches and holes in the wall and a rat or, whatever, just a fallen ceiling. And, it would move me, of course. And I would always mark, a very small mark on the back of the photo just to make sure that I saw it. So if later they were, passing around in court, I could say I saw that picture. And then one day, a few months later, someone else handed me pictures on another building in another part of town, and I turned it over, and there was my mark. So the tenants are saying, passing it around like there was a tenant handbook, Norm always falls for this one. If you see Norm and give him this picture, he'll help you. So I got a kick out of that.
Very interesting. They were like baseball cards, right?
Yeah, exactly. Very, very much so.
Yeah. So what was the next step after you did that for the city?
So while I was at the city, I really questioned the tax foreclosure procedures that the city was using, in part because of the end result, that the city was not prepared to sell those buildings and put them back in the stream of commerce, nor did they have the money to renovate them. So they boarded up a lot of buildings. When you board up a building on a good block, that inversely condemns the valuation of the buildings next to it, because then squatters are going to come in, drug dealers will come in, and the city's just not there every day reapplying the plywood, and sort of anarchy rules on the block, and then the next building goes under, and the next building, and it inversely condemns that whole block, and that's just unfair, and it was wrong, and the city just wasn't ready. And I tried as best I could when I was with the city to make impact, but I decided to look at it in an omnibus way, so I went and started up buying deeds and mortgages on buildings that were already foreclosed on by the city. And you'll say, Norman, why would you do that? The city already owns it. Well, I took those deeds and mortgages, found the best case, and I filed a lawsuit in New York challenging the New York City tax foreclosure statute as unconstitutional. And I can go into the details of that, but I ended up winning in 1987, August of 1987, in a 4-1 decision in the appellate division, and then a 7-0 decision at the Court of Appeals, which is the highest court in New York State. And so they invalidated the tax foreclosure statute, which forced the city to address the issue of what to do with these buildings. And I was very proud of that. So that was the second thing I did.
That was the second. How about the third?
The third thing is I moved here to Georgia. I became a father. I lived in a wonderful, wonderful apartment on West 4th Street in Greenwich Village. And I was married, and I had a son in 1986. And it's not like today where you have these very light new plastics and carbon fiber baby chairs that you can walk with, go up and down the stairs, press a button, and it becomes a carriage. Or then you press a button, it's a car seat. We had a car seat, which was heavy. You had a steel carriage.
And you couldn't fold them,
right?
I assume.
Exactly. Oh, you folded them, but it was still incredibly heavy. And so my wife was walking down. We were on the 3rd floor. She'd walk down the stairs with the baby and give them to Mr. Ho, who ran the Chinese laundry next door, and then would run up and get the carriage and bring it down. And she told me, we can't do that anymore. We've got to buy an elevator, an apartment in an elevated building. And prices had started going up. I know everyone's going to laugh at this, but a 2-bedroom apartment in New York then, in a very like Hell's Kitchen even, in an elevated building was $350,000. And because it was a co-op, that had $1,000 monthly maintenance attached to it. So it's about a $5,000 a month nut. Back in 1986, 87, I was making $60,000 a year.
That's so your entire salary, but you were making that before taxes.
Before taxes.
Yeah, so you were making less than just covering the cost of housing.
So we started looking in New Jersey for homes. And we came back from looking in New Jersey one day, and I walk out into my apartment, and the first thing I saw was the New Yorker poster of the world, which everyone in those days had, framed in their homes. And it was a map it was the New Yorker view of the whole world. So Manhattan was like 80% of the frame, the Hudson River, and then it had Japan. Like if you're out of Manhattan, you were nowhere. And just then I said, if I'm going to leave Manhattan, why does it have to be New Jersey? I can go anywhere. And so I started looking for a job in the Wall Street Journal weekly classifieds for a general counsel job all across the country, and I got a job here in Atlanta.
Who was the job with?
It was with the Diego family. They're still here. Then it was called Uramex was the company. It was they're Spanish nationals who came here and started a business.
Wesley Communities.
Yes, they now have Wesley Communities, and they do a very, very good job. And I was there at the beginning, 1987. I worked for them until 1994 as their general counsel.
It's time gate entry systems were reimagined. Tired of dealing with clickers, key fobs, broken call boxes, and keypads everyone has the code to? Imagine managing multiple properties and realizing your keys are miles away. With Gatewise, access is in your pocket. No codes, no hassle. Residents can let in guests or deliveries from anywhere with a single tap. Gatewise integrates with your property management system, automatically revoking access when residents move out. The Gatewise management portal makes it easy to control every access point remotely from any device. No dedicated computer required, just smart, flexible control at your fingertips. Gatewise also supports self-storage, giving your team cloud-based control over tenant access. Fast, secure, and fully remote. More convenience for your residents, more time and cost savings for your team.
And 1994 marks the beginning of a new era, right? RADCO?
It did. It was an incredible year. I bought the Four Seasons Hotel condo and office tower in Midtown Atlanta, which was just a remarkable story that if I had the experience and knowledge I have today, I probably wouldn't have done it. But I had that youthful optimism and excitement, and I wouldn't let anything stand in my way, and I got it done.
You took a chance and it worked for you.
It did. It barely did. Almost didn't, but...
you wouldn't do it again?
Oh, I probably would. I say that tongue-in-cheek, but it was a very difficult transaction. Imagine a young man in his 30s. I have a mortgage. I have 2 cars. I have credit cards up the yin-yang. And here's a 53-story building, one of the most beautiful buildings, even today, one of the most beautiful buildings in Atlanta. And I would get to own it. A kid from Brooklyn in the projects, and here, one of the most beautiful buildings in the world. And so it was a daunting, opportunity, and the process was very, very difficult. I went to contract. I borrowed the money from my family and maxed out my credit cards to get the deposit. And 2 weeks before the closing, the equity that I had gotten commitments from withdrew because someone on the credit committee in New York said that condos would never sell in Midtown Atlanta, right? Midtown Atlanta today, we know, is the epicenter of condos. Like everybody wants to live in Midtown. It's such an activated part of the city now. I'm so excited. I own a building there now called the M on 12th Street and West Peachtree. And to see people on the streets and carriages and walking dogs and bicycling. And I love those DoorDash little carts, robotic carts going back, delivering food. I mean, it's just such an exciting neighborhood. 1994, not so much. And that's what they really gleamed onto and said that, and they withdrew their equity. It was about $18 million 2 weeks before the closing. So now I'm exposed. All the money in the world I had, my house mortgaged to the hilt, my parents' money was borrowed, everything to get just the deposit, and I have no equity. And Lehman Brothers flew down. I didn't know Lehman Brothers. They flew down, and we had a drink. I gave them a tour of the building, and Mark Walsh and Jan Cho and they sat down in the bar with me, and we ordered a drink. And on a cloth napkin at the bar, they wrote out a term sheet for me to fill the gap of that 18 million. And they offered me 19 or 20 million, but they offered it to me with 9 points. So they're taking back $1.8 million of that. So I'd get the 18 I needed. And it was 20% interest rate, 20% interest rate, and it was 20% of the deal. So I needed a drink at the bar to sign, with my shaking hand, to sign that cloth napkin. And I thought then I'd get a formal loan commitment and we go through the whole process. No, they went straight from napkin to closing. And 2 weeks later, we closed. Fascinating story. And then I got the first interest statement from Lehman Brothers. And it said LBHI, Lehman Brothers Holding Inc., loan number 0001.
You were the very first one.
The first loan in real estate that Lehman had originated. And so if you're going to blame Lehman's downfall on real estate, it was my first deal that was so successful that teased them into going to a full-time. So you may want to blame me for the dominoes that fell in 2008. But it was the first deal, and after that, Lehman Brothers just would back me on every deal. I would just call them up. We never had a term sheet. Said, do you like it? I love it. These terms look good? Yes. And we'd go from phone call to closing. So it was that kind of Wild West almost, where just handshakes and trust was the key to our relationship.
What does it take to build that type of trust?
You have to earn it. You have to earn it. And it takes a lifetime. I think they took a risk on me then. I think today everyone knows if you have my handshake, you have more than any legal piece of paper. I hate it when we have to go read documents because that means there's something wrong with the relationship. And so I really avoid that like the plague. So trust is really important to me. And if I can't trust you, I'll divorce you really fast, and we'll just, let's hopefully be friends and go on our merry way. But Lehman Brothers trusted me. They had some reason to trust me, but they really, I think they took a chance on me, and I really appreciate it. And to this day, I'm friends with both Jan Cho, who's now retired, and Mark Walsh, who now runs Silver Peak, who have an extraordinary company, and we do some business with them still. And in fact, I did 3 deals with them early on in the last cycle that I knew would make a fortune, because I wanted to just give back to him. So I put him in those deals. I forced him to come in those deals to make, I think he made a 7X on them. And sort of, in just a small way, a thank you for starting me in my career and believing in me.
What was your first multifamily deal with RADCO?
Well, I did several multifamily deals, but I did them as a receiver. I did them coming in as part of my workout business that we did later. I think we skipped on RADCO 2.0, and I'll mention that in a moment, how we got there. But we were in the workout business. So it wasn't until 2011 that we bought our first multi-deals that we owned, controlled, and managed.
When you're looking back, we talked about, great wins that you had. Some of them were like, borderline. Is it going to happen or not? Especially the first one with the Four Seasons. I want to talk about losses. What is a really hurtful loss that you had in a business? Or did you ever lose in business?
So I've lost money on one deal, and it was all my money. So I didn't lose any investors' money. And it was a condo deal in 2006 when the market turned. And I had a difficult lender then, I think made it a little impossible. And I just decided to take my chips off the table. So I lost money in that. And that was the only deal I've lost money in. I've never lost money for any investors. I think, sadly, that's going to change now in this environment right now. Interest rates have stayed high for a long time, and we may lose a little money on a couple of deals, but we're never throwing in the towel. We're not upside down on any deal particularly. It's a question of, and I think there are a couple of deals where I know over time we claw back and do well. But if you take the chips off the table now and reinvest it in new deals that are coming up, which I think are going to be much more exciting, that we can make that money back faster. So yeah, I can say psychologically we held on another 5 years. Hey, we got back to making a modest profit, but I could have taken maybe a 30% loss now, reinvest in new
somewhere
deals
else
now,
first, yeah.
and we'd come back with a 20%, 30% profit. So I think we'd make more money doing that. So I'm doing that in consultation with my investors, and it's 31 years, and it'll be my the first time that we may have a modest loss for our investors. And let me just tell you, these are people. These are not institutions. It's not Goldman Sachs. We say they're big boys. They underwrote it too. If they didn't rely on me, they relied on themselves. It was not an execution issue. It was a market issue. But that's not. These are friends. These are people I know in the community. These are people who have been my lawyers. These are people I met through other friends, and I've developed relationships with. And it's a gut-wrenching feeling at night when you go to sleep and know that, or don't go to sleep because you have to deliver bad news like that. I take it very seriously. I know a lot of people who don't, and they say it's business and they just move on, but it's very emotional and personal for me.
You talked a lot about relationships, friendships, how much they matter to you. So I have a question about relationships and money. When someone comes to you, approaches you, how do you determine if that person actually has a genuine interest in knowing you, or they're actually attracted by your success and your wealth, and they just want a piece of the action? They're just thinking by associating themselves with you, they could get some of that. I guess, something might be rubbing off of them too.
Wow, that's a great question. And that's a pretty broad question because it happens in social circles. It happens because of business and what have you. And, I really don't care. Unless it's so patently obvious, I want to help everybody. And so anyone who wants to meet with me, I have an open door. And I try to give them advice. I try to counsel them. Often they'll ask me, how do you raise money? They'll ask me, they're going into my business, or they're going into a similar business, and they don't know how to handle the verticals, or they don't know how to handle the brokers, or they don't know how to handle the banks. And they ask for my advice, and I always give them my time. Sometimes I found what they do is go and copy me word for word, and they sort of plagiarize what I do, and I shrug it off a little bit. In a way, I think it's the highest form of flattery.
I was about to say that isn't that the highest form of flattery for someone trying to copy you?
Yeah, but then they have this high-quality book that they put out where they basically cut out names, and just put their names in and have a beautiful book, and then we don't look as unique. But really, when you look at the people who do that, they have no track record, they have no experience. I think the market sees through that. But it does help them get a foot in the door. It's helped many people, and I've helped many people, and most often it comes back sometimes decades later. You don't even know it. Someone just approached me recently and said, 15 years ago you helped me. I could never have started my business without you. I don't remember them. But they swore they met with me and all the advice they gave them, and that would be the advice I would have given them. And they came in, can I come in and just tell you what I'm doing now and just catch up and thank you in person? And that just happened a couple of weeks ago. So you never know when that's going to happen.
Speaking of that, if you were Norm 50 years from now and you're watching this conversation, you're watching that podcast, what do you wish Norm would have said during the conversation?
Well, gosh. All right. Well, I will repeat what I said earlier today. I say this at every conference I can, every young person that I can. It's great to look at multifamily more than any other asset class as a widget that you can buy and sell like a commodity. And you can have your spreadsheets all day long and look at your costs and expenses, and I can cut payroll and cut this salary here and do this. And that's all great. You can do all that. But you're missing the point. And the point is that our business is to provide a family a home. I can't emphasize this enough. And it is our responsibility, that family can live in a safe and clean environment for their children. And if you can't believe in your end product, if you don't want to be good at it, please don't be in this business. It hurts us. A lot of the regulations that come out from both lenders and the government started with folks that jumped into our business trying to make a quick buck and hurt people. And I just hope that everyone who goes into our business does so with the understanding, not that they shouldn't make money. They should make a lot of money, and I wish it on everybody that they make a lot of money, but do it by providing a good product. Be good at what you do. And that's, I emphasize that often, every time I can. And if you leave here with one thing, please leave here with that.
You've done a lot of owner-manager deals, and you also have expanded into the third-party management business. Which one is the best? If I'm an investor now and I want to buy my first multifamily deal, should I self-manage or should I reach out to RADCO and say, would you be managing for me? What makes the most financial sense?
Well, it makes the most financial sense. RADCO, of course, will do a very, 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 very good job for you. But it makes the most financial sense for an owner to control the vertical, to control the entire vendor experience on a property as much as possible. However, it makes no sense to do that for one apartment complex or two apartments or three. You need to have some scale before that makes sense. But I'll tell you, we were at 7,000 or 8,000 units, and I've gone through 5 or 6 management companies. I had like 3 going at one time. I had a blog that I did where I had a picture of a hole in the wall in my office. And I said, that's the hole that keeps getting bigger every time I talk to the president of a third-party management company. I just want to hit my head against the wall because all you would hear are superlatives or excuses or I'll let you know, I'll get back to you at the next meeting, just to get off the phone as fast as possible. And I realized that they spend more money on business development than they do on operations. And RADCO does just the opposite. We probably have per capita twice as many employees for the properties that we have above property level to provide support and services. That's why we lose our shirts doing it. We have other reasons for doing it, but which I can explain later. But controlling when we decided to go into our own business, even though we weren't great at it at first, we had commitment, right? And I was all over it. And we found that we added $10 million of value to our portfolio in 90 days just by taking over the properties in 90 days. And so I recommend eventually when you get to a scale and you know you're going to be in the business for a longer period of time, building up a property management vertical is very expensive. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to hire the wrong people. You got to train those people. You got to create a corporate culture. So many things that you have to do. It takes a long time, so just don't do it if you're going to be in the business for a year or two, just for a quick in and out. But if it's going to be your career, then by all means make that investment. I think is the better approach. In the third-party business, we are doing it, one, because the market's not right yet for a major acquisition push. We want to be there. We think we're close to it. We expect it'll be tomorrow, but it's not. So we only own a couple of thousand units today, and that's not enough to justify a third-party platform, one of the quality that we have. So we've gone out to the third-party business in part to just pay the bills, keep our staff current, getting ready for the next cycle. But the second reason we're doing it is that we have now market intelligence on, let's say, 40 properties in the city of Atlanta, all over the city. So we know what's going on here and there. So if a deal comes up on the market that's next door to one of our properties or a block away or a quarter mile away or on the same exit, same vintage, we know exactly what we can do. So that's a second reason that we're doing it. We have the best market intelligence you can have when you have your hand on the pulse of what's going on and not just reading what CoStar has to say. So CoStar is very helpful, but knowing what the real cost per unit is in expenses today, knowing what is behind the walls on an 80s deal today. And so when that comes up, you can, without doing your due diligence, it's going to cost X, 10% either way. And so that gives a lot of market knowledge. And the third reason is that many of these deals we're taking over were working for the lenders or the pref lenders or the LP equity, and hanging around that hoop, at some point perhaps we'll be asked to buy that property or be referred to other properties those lenders own. You're doing such a great job here. Norm, we got 3 other deals over here. Would you buy them? We'll give you the debt, et cetera, et cetera. So has that happened yet? Not really, but there are a lot of conversations that are happening. And as soon as the lenders, I think, are ready, I think you'll see a lot of transaction volume. And being in the game, I think, helps a lot.
I want to focus a little bit on things like the future, right? And I want to start with AI, artificial intelligence. Get your personal thoughts on AI. How do you think it affects the society? How does it affect your business? And what do you do from a business perspective?
Well, I think I just got an AI memo the other day, by the way, and it cracked me up. And it was someone had asked AI to write a letter, and you knew it because it was in 2 different prints. One was what the person was writing me, and then they cut and pasted AI, which was in a different font. So I found it very cute. Of course, I went and looked up everything AI said, and it wasn't totally accurate or it wasn't being applied correctly. So I don't think it's there yet, but I think it's going to revolutionize our society in ways that we can't even imagine today. And I'm going to let others talk about that because we can go on for hours about that. But I want to take a step back just to think of the last 10 years, what's gone on in technology in multifamily. 10 years ago, every apartment complex had a rent slot by the front door for you to drop your rent in an envelope and put your rent check in an envelope through this slot. And then every week or twice a week, a manager would put those envelopes in a blue bank envelope and zip it up and go drive to a bank branch and make deposits. So once or twice a week, we'd get cash reports. We wouldn't have up-to-date information. It would take a day before the banks processed it, so we'd always get old information. Today, who pays by check?
No one, almost.
Right? 10 years later, almost no one pays by check. There are no rent slots anymore to put after-hour rent checks in. It's all done mostly online. And if you bring a check in, they take a picture, and it's automatically deposited. We get accurate to-the-second information. So we know exactly who's in arrears, who's not, so we can take action more efficiently than before. So that's one major change that's happened in just 10 years. And just think about all the time that manager had to drive to a bank twice a week and drive back and then follow the paperwork and then fax it to us. That fax was the big technology then. And so look at all that time that they now can spend on human relations, on dealing with the problems of our residents and giving better service. So that's more accurate information, less chance of mistakes and loss of checks, and more quality service and a better job for the managers, right? Who wants to go do that ministerial job? The second thing that's really changed, is really remarkable, is in 2014, 11 years ago, I'd walk through our office and just pulling my hair out of my head, desk after desk had paper piled up to the ceiling. Why? Because every week the managers would assemble all the bills that they received and they would put them in a FedEx envelope. And every Friday, we had 60 properties at the time, 60 FedExes would come, and some of them are 3 inches thick of bills. And we had 6 payable clerks, and what they did is open them up, and they would stamp them with a stamp that was received, code them, and then scan them by hand into the computer, all by hand. And so that was paper and paper and paper and paper. But not only was it piled up, and once a month they would take it and file it. So we had 4,000 square feet of space just for file cabinets for all these bills that came in and the checks that we paid to pay, approved to pay them. And in 2015, all that changed. We went to online system where all the vendors would directly input their bills into the computer. They would code them. They would get our chart of accounts. They would code them. They would send them in. No one's 100%, but now the manager can look at it. The payables clerk can look at it. the asset manager could look at it all in real time at the same time, and nothing got lost. Nothing could be stuck in a drawer. No one can. I know it never happened, but delay a bill because they wanted to get their bonuses for their P&L for that quarter, and then the bills all came in the week after the next quarter. All of a sudden, we got all these bills in. That none of that happened anymore, and so now we don't have those filing cabinets. I don't have to pay rent on all that storage space. I need half as many payable clerks. They can do a more fun job at analyzing things rather than just pushing paper around. The manager is unburdened and now can spend more time doing fun things and dealing with the residents. So there are just two examples of how technology has changed the way our business is done. I want to take a step back. It's a long answer to a short question. And I want to talk about the year 1900. And I'm really a student of the year 1900 because my grandparents were all born on either, a couple of years before or after 1900. And they were part of my life well into my 30s, and I knew them very, very well and what their life was like. And I can talk all about that. But there's one part of that life that I want to emphasize to everyone. In 1900, in the United States of America, there were no cars. We had 22 million horses in the United States of America. We had 75 million people, so we had a horse for every 3 people or so. That means you had to have real estate in cities for stables to maintain those horses. You needed stable hands to take care of those horses. You needed blacksmiths, which is a coveted job then, to take care of the horseshoes and things like that. You had saddle makers who were artisans. You had buggy makers. You had street sweepers who were sweeping the manure off the streets. You had and you had 10 million acres of farmland devoted to produce hay for those horses. Okay, 1900. In 1920, there were only 6 million horses in the United States of America, down from 22 million. Instead, you had 9 million cars and trucks were registered in the year 1920. In 20 years, a 5,000-year economy based on horses was upended. And all those people involved in those trades now had to move into making cars and doing other jobs. And the economy just changed dramatically in a 20-year period. That's what I think is about to happen with AI.
We had a couple of CEOs sitting in the same chair as you're sitting today. And one of the things that they have predicted was that one of the jobs that it's kind of like safe from being eliminated by AI could be a trade-related job, maintenance technician, HVAC technician, plumber, electrician. Not only that, but they said there are the millionaires of the future because AI is not that advanced and probably is not going to advance anytime soon to be able to replace them. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's going to come later. I think their jobs are going to become easier because I think smart devices will alert them to issues before they become too big. They may even tell you what to do to fix them. But I don't think that AI is going to fix itself yet. There are now robotic dogs on properties now. I don't know if you've seen them. So maybe they'll have robotic mechanics at one day. But I don't see that in the immediate future. What I do see, and I'm very excited about this, by the way, I don't think it's going to necessarily mean a loss of jobs, but to make jobs more productive and happier, I think computers will not be in the leasing office of the future. I don't think there'll be copiers. I don't think there'll be printers. And I think that'll all be happening with AI. It'll all be happening online. I think the corporate will take over a lot of those responsibilities. I see a day when Yardi could actually be intuitive and fun to use. Not everything can be solved.
If they're around anymore.
Yeah.
If they're around anymore in a form that they are today. Probably not.
Right. But I think that's going to allow the leasing office to focus, the management office to focus on people and service, and it'll make their jobs happier and better and take all that administrative burden off of them. And I think maybe we could shave off a person or two from the office because of that. But it will give everyone else, I think, a happier job, a more fulfilling job, and we'll give better service to our residents. So I'm
Norm.
very excited about it.
Norm, it's been amazing having you on today.
Adrian,
Thank you
it's
so
a
much for
pleasure.
coming.
Thank you for having me.